The Dangers of a Dating App, played by Miss Horny Honey.
They had only been talking for a week through the dating app and already wanted to meet in person. They connected very quickly. The photo of him was a close-up of his face. The photo of her, a close-up of her feet. He was handsome, so she gave him her match. She had beautiful feet, so he, a known fetishist, couldn't resist. When they both made a match, he was the one who wrote first. "You have spectacular feet and I would like to know if they have ever been kissed." That's what he wrote. Straight to the point. A few minutes later he received the girl's response. "Thanks for the compliment," she said, "and yes, they have been kissed many times. Do you want to be the next?" That's how they started their conversation. The first day they talked for more than an hour via chat. Oscar continued talking about the toenails painted different colors and the texture of her skin. The size of her toes. The sand stuck to her skin. Laura read and laughed. "You are very observant," she told him. On the second day, more photos were exchanged. Laura sent more pictures of her feet and her legs, and Oscar sent more pictures of his face and his bare chest. He was a fairly muscular young man, a fact that Laura, an attractive 40-year-old woman, liked. "I'm 5 years older than you," she said. "Do not care. I love those feet and I want to eat them with kisses," he replied. "I haven't even sent you a picture of my face," she said. "I don't care," Oscar responded. "I'm sure you're beautiful." The app said they were only 17 kilometers away, so on the third day they started talking about an in-person date. On the fourth day they agreed on a place and time for the next day. That fifth day they couldn't stop writing until an hour before their appointment. Oscar arrived first. He sat at the table on the terrace where they had met and ordered a beer from the waiter, a man in his 50s. A minute later a very cold beer appeared next to his face from behind him. "Your beer, sir," said a female voice. Oscar turned and saw an attractive woman who introduced herself as Laura, who was carrying the glass with his beer in one hand. He stood up and greeted her with a wide smile. They gave 2 kisses. Laura had a soda in her other hand. She placed both glasses on the table and sat across from Oscar. "You haven't said anything about my shoes, or my feet," Laura said. "I'm sorry," he apologized. "It was a surprise that you showed up like this and I didn't even notice." Laura leaned back and put her feet on the table. She looked at him with defiant eyes. Oscar looked at Laura's stilettos on the table. Then he looked both ways, a little embarrassed. "What's wrong?" Laura said. "You do not like them?" "Well, yes," he replied. "But this is a public place and maybe you shouldn't put your feet up on the table." Without stopping to look into his eyes, Laura took off her shoes without using her hands. The stilettos fell on the table. Oscar opened his eyes even wider without saying anything. They looked into each other's eyes in silence. Laura seemed like a very confident woman and she didn't care what was happening around her. She was only focused on Oscar. "So, are you going to look at my feet or not?" She told him, sensual and seductive while she slowly moved her toes. Oscar looked at them for the first time. Laura had sent him many photos of her toes, of her toenails painted in different colors, her arches, her insteps, her heels. Bare feet, with nylons or sandals. But it was the first time that Oscar saw her soles. And he saw them just a meter away. "Aren't you going to ask me if I want a massage?" Laura said. "Those stilettos are sexy but uncomfortable," she added. "I don't think I was expecting a first date like this," he said, while he took a long drink of beer. Laura smiled. "You were direct in chat the first day and I am direct in person the first day. Why lose the time?" Oscar smiled knowingly. "You're right," he said. "Are we going somewhere?" He asked her, armed with courage, before taking another long drink. "How about we go to a hotel?" she said. Beer spilled everywhere from Oscar's mouth. His shirt, Laura's shoes, and even her feet. Everyone looked at them and spoke at the same time with frowns, protesting the spectacle the two newcomers were putting on. When Oscar could breathe again, Laura stood up. She's serious, he thought, also standing up. Let's go, Oscar, she said, turning around, ignoring the disapproving looks of the people. I know a hotel that is nearby. Wait, he asked, I'll pay for the beer and your soda. Although you haven't even tried it. Laura laughed. I was waiting for you at the bar and I saw you arrive, so I brought your beer and my soft drink. Don't worry, I've already paid. Oscar felt like a complete idiot. He didn't like being invited by girls on the first date. So after letting Laura into the hotel, he went ahead and asked for a room. This time I'll pay, he said, under the watchful eye of the receptionist. They went up to the room and Laura asked him to take off his shirt. It smells like beer, she told him. I'm afraid your feet too, he replied very timidly. Well, Laura responded. But that has a solution, right? Get on your knees. Oscar slowly knelt down, staring at Laura's stilettos. She let him take her shoes off very gently. While Oscar leaned down to kiss her insteps, Laura took the opportunity to open her bag. She then moved away from him and stood behind him. Don't move, she told him. She grabbed his hair and made him sit up. Don't move, she repeated. Oscar experienced a strange sensation. He didn't know if it was sexual excitement or really fear. He didn't know that woman. What was she going to do to him? She let his hair down and put a handkerchief over his eyes. She tightened the knot she made and stood in front of him again. You can continue, she told him. Oscar felt great relief. He smiled like a child and obeyed without saying anything. He knelt down again and began to kiss and caress Laura's feet. Wait, she said. Do not move. Oscar smiled. Again she stood behind him. What is she going to do now? He thought. With quick movements, Laura put metal handcuffs on Oscar's hands, who at that moment was blindfolded and his hands were tied behind his back. The handcuffs were very cold. You've lost one of your 5 senses, she said. Sight. And part of the touch. But you still have the hearing to obey my orders, right? Oscar nodded silently. Very good, she said. I like that you don't talk and that you are so obedient. You are an excellent submissive. We have 2 of the 5 senses left. Smell and taste. Oscar nodded. Laura stood in front of him again. This time very close to him, with her feet on either side of Oscar. Laura's sex was just inches from his nose and his mouth. I'm all yours, she told him. Oscar did a great job. He had never enjoyed smell and taste so much. The blindfolded eyes and tied hands made him focus on those 2 senses. And of course in the ear, since Laura's moans were increasingly intense, frequent and rhythmic. The last moan was especially long. With Laura's fingers pulling hard on Oscar's hair, until she managed to separate him from her body. She sat on the edge of the bed looking at the boy, who stood with his back to her. Oscar remained still and silent, waiting for new orders. Laura looked for her bag and took more things out of it again. Come, she told him. Stand up. This time Laura's voice sounded less sensual. She seemed to be in a hurry. Oscar approached her. Laura got up and pushed him onto the bed. With movements just as fast as before, she pinned his ankles to the legs of the bed, but not to the leg closest to his but to the leg opposite his. In this way his legs remained crossed in a strange way. She then attached a collar to his neck and possibly tied it to the headboard of the bed. Oscar felt that strange sensation again, a mixture of fear and desire. He felt helpless, lying on his back with his hands tied behind his back and his ankles and neck tied to the bed. His blindfolded eyes prevented him from seeing what was happening. He heard the click of a lighter and a strong smell of tobacco reached him. He hated tobacco. Laura remained silent and he was beginning to worry. She seemed nervous. Something wasn't right. What was Laura doing? He heard her sigh. But she still didn't say anything. In reality, the erotic game seemed to be over for her, as she smoked in silence looking out the window. She checked her watch. "It's early," she said. "We have a lot of time." Oscar seemed to calm down, listening to Laura's steps slowly but surely approaching him. She put the cigarette on a figure on the nightstand and sat on him. She unbuttoned his pants and pulled them down to his ankles. She then pulled down his boxers and climbed on top of him again. Oscar no longer felt afraid. He was excited again. Without saying anything, Laura sat up, grabbed Oscar's sex with her hand and brought him closer to hers. She then sat on Oscar again. 2 minutes. Just 2 minutes. Or maybe it was even less time. It did not matter. The work was done. Laura returned to the window. She clicked the lighter again. The damn smell of tobacco again. Silence again. Oscar was not liking that. It was a strange situation. Very bizarre. This wasn't how he wanted to enjoy himself with a woman. "Listen, Laura," he began to say. "Shut up," she replied. "Don't open that pretty mouth of yours. Don't waste energy. Just get some sleep," she said afterward in a somewhat sweeter voice. Oscar didn't understand anything. But faced with Laura's silence and lack of action, Oscar fell into a deep sleep. After all, it wasn't the first time he fell asleep after having sex. When he had been asleep for a while, he felt slight blows on his face. "Wake up," he came to listen. "Please wake up." He opened his eyes with difficulty and saw Laura's shadow. He began to remember. "This time I'll let you look," she told him. He tried to move but was still tied to the bed with his hands under his back. At least the handcuffs were no longer cold, but they had caused him annoying pain from lying with his arms under the weight of his own body. He focused his gaze on her, who was looking at him seriously with another cigarette on her lips. Zero sensuality. "You've rested enough," she told him. "I have been testing your favorite toy and I think it responds to my stimuli again. You are ready." Oscar looked around him. He hadn't dreamed it. He was shirtless because he had taken it off when they got to the hotel room. His pants and his boxers remained bunched up at his ankles. And he was still obviously tied up. Laura was still wearing the same blouse from their date on the terrace, and she was only missing clothes from the waist down. He remembered taking off her stilettos. He remembered that smell and taste of her sex before he ended up tied to the bed smelling of tobacco. He remembered that that date was being too strange. He looked at her without saying anything. That look was asking for an explanation. Laura climbed on top of Oscar again, caressing what she had called a toy. "If you need me to show you my toes to get you excited, just ask me," Laura said. Oscar tried to protest, but she beat him to it. "My name is Laura. I am 40 years old. I am happily married and live very far from here. I work selling industrial items, and these days I am destined for this area. My husband is a police officer. He can't have children. Do you understand? You're just a much cheaper help than an artificial insemination clinic. I need you tonight and then you won't see me again." After saying that, Laura raised his body again to sit deeply on Oscar's toy. "You are handsome and athletic," she told him. "I'm sure your material is good," she added before repeating the same movements as before, which again lasted just about 2 minutes. The next morning, the receptionist caught Oscar trying to undo that horrible necklace. Impossible to reach the ankle fixations. But it was also impossible to loosen that necklace. Laura had only taken the handcuffs. "They belong to my husband," she said. "He needs them for his work. You can keep the rest," she added. "They are cheap things. They cost less than treating a pregnancy." It was the last thing he heard from Laura's lips before she closed the door and left the hotel. Now receiving help from the receptionist, he began to cry. "She has raped me, she has raped me," he repeated in a low voice. She did it repeatedly. The identification that Laura had provided to the hotel was clearly false. On the terrace where they had met the day before, no one had seen before that woman who had put on that show with her feet on the table. Only the waiter remembered her. "Of course I remember her," he told Oscar. "She was very elegant, with those high-heeled stilettos. She spent a while at the bar doing shoe play with them because I guess they're awkward. She ordered a soda and said she would bring your beer to the table. And she left without paying." He didn't even have a photo of her face, he thought. He only kept a few photos of her feet. He would never know if that 40-year-old stranger named Laura was carrying his child inside her womb. The photo at the beginning is completely real, of a 40-year-old Laura whom a dating app located 17 kilometers from me. The rest of the story is simple fiction.